The countdown for 2024 is underway, and in just a matter of days, up to 1 million people will be gathering in New York City's Times Square in order to watch the ball drop. New York City police prepare for the New Year's Eve's security threats.
You'll find an increased police presence in Times Square this year. Both officers you'll see and ones you don't even know are there.
It's a real threat.
Security experts say police are facing the most challenging threat environment since before 9/11. They're receiving more tips and working behind the scenes to vet them.
Social media, tips from people, they're following all these leads.
The FBI has warned of increased security risks due to the Israel-Hamas war.
Nationwide, the FBI has investigated more than 1,800 tips since then and has more than 100 open investigations. It's something the director of the FBI testified about in front of Congress earlier this month.
I've never seen a time where all the threats, or so many of the threats, are all elevated all at exactly the same time.
The New York City police are on high alert for potential lone wolf attacks.
The biggest concern, lone wolves and small groups taking action with little to no notice.
It is time to really be concerned about this. We won't panic, of course, but nonetheless, these are extraordinary levels that we haven't seen.
Hey guys, if you appreciate the effort that goes into these videos, these updates, please do me a quick favor, hit the like button. It really means a lot to me. A steam pipe ruptured in East Midtown New York early this morning, just in fact, less than 5 hours ago, causing concerns for residents who needed to shelter in place in their apartments. Guys, this incident also led to several street closures. Now the question is, was this an attack or was this something else? The Steamline issue started as a leak at East 52nd Street and 2nd Avenue around 2 a.m., according to the Department of Energy Management. The situation continued to worsen before it capped out around 6:45 a.m. Governor Kathy Hochul used her Christmas to address on Monday earlier this week to condemn a spike in the anti-Semitic and Islamophobic crimes seen across New York since the Hamas terror attack on Israel this fall. Now, if you guys appreciate the updates and you like more updates like this, definitely hit the subscribe button, join our community. I'd love to have you a part of it. Now, as New Year's Eve approaches New York, Governor Kathy Hochul and Mayor Eric Adams have their hands full as law enforcement officials are warning of increased threats to public gatherings. Approximately 10,000 illegal cars enter NYC every day.
My concern are the amount of drivers that are out here driving private cars, but legally using their license.
And New York's finest will be on high alerts, showing zero tolerance for illegally parked vehicles and illegally tagged cars, which is a growing concern, especially in and around the Times Square area in Manhattan, given the heightened threat risks associated with the New Year's Eve celebrations in just a few days, guys. In fact, the countdown for 2024 is underway, and in just a matter of days, up to 1 million people will be gathering in New York City's Times Square in order to watch the ball drop. But the Israel-Hamas war is creating some safety concerns. So right now, there aren't any credible threats at the moment, but the area is considered as an attractive target for foreign terrorists and homegrown violent extremists. Local, state, and federal law enforcement are on high alert, and they're working together to implement security plans in order to keep the people safe who happen to be celebrating in Times Square and in and around the area. Now, earlier this month, an intelligence bulletin from the FBI and the Department of Homeland Security, it was sent out to law enforcement agencies across the country. And the notice expressed very serious concerns about what they call lone wolf attacks and targeted violence at high profile events like the New Year's Eve ball drop in Times Square. A lot of eyes are going to be on this thing here. So the FBI also said that attackers could use large gatherings to commit violence against Jews, Muslims, and Christians. Guys, be alert. I'm praying for everyone to be able to enjoy a very safe and happy and celebratory New Year's Eve going into New Year's Day. But of course, since the Hamas attack on Israel on October 7th, the FBI says various foreign terrorist groups have called for lone wolf attacks in the U.S. You know, we've already talked about this in previous videos, the fact that we know that there are in fact sleeper cells here in the United States that are already inside of our borders. So we have to be prepared. We have to be aware. And there's also concern that pro-Hamas and pro-Palestinian protesters could be planning to invade the New Year's Eve ball drop festivities on Sunday, which could easily put an even bigger target on the NYPD, which is already dealing with a severe shortage of police officers. So it's not going to be fun. It's not going to be an easy day in the park or an easy walk in the park for Kathy Hochul or for Mayor Eric Adams. On Christmas Day, police clashed with protesters in Midtown Manhattan, resulting in basically a shoving match where, ultimately 6 people were arrested. Now, 600 days inside of the New York migrant crisis, more than 150,000 people have already arrived in the past 2 years, throwing New York City into crisis. Missed opportunities have made things even harder. In fact, New York City's long-standing sidewalk shed finally comes down after 21 years, guys.
Beautiful historical landmark building had to be encased in a shed because it was easier to keep it up than to do the repairs and take it down.
It was the longest standing sidewalk shed in Manhattan.
The removal of the sidewalk shed just below hundreds of New York City apartments displaces homeless migrants who have made this a temporary home. Nearly 70,000 migrants crammed into hundreds of emergency shelters, people sleeping on floors or huddled on the sidewalks in the December cold. And believe me, guys, it was pretty freaking cold out there. Families packed into giant tents at the edge of the city, just miles from schools or services. And New York City is spending hundreds of millions of dollars every single month to take care of them. Although some invoices appear to have been overlooked. In fact, NYC Hotel Association says hotels housing migrants have not been paid in months. Now that's odd. Reports have surfaced that 110 hotels housing the migrants in New York City have not been paid by the city since early September, according to the Hotel Association of New York City. And I quote, he says, according to VJ Dandapani, nobody expected it would take this long to get paid. Now, VJ is the head of the Hotel Association. Dandapani said the hotels are owed collectively $130 million. Wow. So just this fall, an official in the administration of Mayor Eric Adams referred to the city's obligation to house and feed the 500 new migrants still arriving each and every single day as our new normal. Wow. That's a lot of new people coming into New York City every single day. 500 new people. I mean, that's like, what, 15,000 people a month? Ugh. And you want to talk about the cost of living going up, cost of apartments. And then a lot of these apartments have been like pretty much taken off the market for long-term rental because a lot of these real estate investors have purchased apartments and condos, co-ops inside of New York City and have dedicated them for short-term rental. So a lot of these apartments that are actually vacant at the moment, they're not even able to be rented by would-be renters because they're literally owned by real estate investors who don't live there, and they literally just kind of want to list these properties on platforms like Airbnb and VRBO to rent them out and actually not make them available for long-term rental. It says it is a normal that could scarcely have been imagined just 18 months ago when migrants began gravitating to the large city in large numbers from the nation's southern border. Now, the migrant crisis in New York is the product of some factors that are beyond the city's control, including global upheaval, a federal government letting migrants enter in record numbers without giving most of them a way to work legally, and a unique local rule requiring the city to offer a bed to every homeless person. This is really going to put a lot of strain on the budget of New York City. And of course, the taxpayers in New York City, because where do you think they're getting the money from, right? But the dimensions of the problem, the $2.4 billion cost so far, the harsh conditions, the number of migrants stuck in shelters can also be traced to actions taken and not taken by the Adams administration. The New York Times found in dozens of interviews with officials, advocates, and migrants. And as the city race to improvise a system that has processed more than 150,000 people since last year, it stumbled in a myriad of ways, many never ever even considered before. Now, of course, for most of the crisis, the city failed to take some basic steps to help migrants move out of shelters and ultimately find homes in a city that is known for its sky-high rents, partially to do with, apartment shortages due to Airbnb, short-term rentals, yada, yada, yada. But anyway, so it waited a whole year to help large numbers of migrants file for asylum, likely closing a pathway to legal employment for thousands of people. So the question is, what's New York City going to do about it? Do you happen to live in New York City? Well, the city has signed more than $2 billion in no-bid contracts, some with vendors that have been accused of abusing migrants. It has paid more than twice as much to house each migrant household as it did to house homeless families before the crisis. Well, guys, if you appreciate the important news updates that I share with you guys every single day, make sure to subscribe to the channel. It only takes a second, and I look forward to seeing you guys on the next one.